Well, hello and welcome back. Yes, I am live. This is a really, again, impromptu live, and the government has struck back. Yes, we've just had the announcement. So we have just been informed that the Minister of Immigration has cancelled Djokovic's visa again. That's right. His visa has been cancelled. So what does that mean? Well, essentially, again, I've been speaking to Poppy Seeds about the different outcomes and the different what might happen. Now, she said that it is very rare, in fact, impossible, that he will be actually able to win against the minister's decision. And I'll show you why, because it's in the Act. Because it's in the Act. I mean, I'm wondering whether, because yes, there is an appeal process, and he does have the right to appeal. But I would like to think that his lawyers are going to tell him that there's very little, chance of success with it. But I think they have to do that anyway. What the prospects of success is, they've got to say that. What I'm wondering is if he's actually going to ask the court for permission to play until his appeal's heard. Now, I'm assuming that that's going to be expedited, and so that could actually happen during this week. So if, for example, the judge says you can play while your matter is being dealt with in court, if he lost, he would then have to leave. Now, I think that is also very selfish and unfair for other people as well, because there's somebody that could have got a spot, somebody that could have had a chance, somebody that could have, played. Now, interestingly enough, another 2 players have left voluntarily who have had the same exemption as Djokovic. So everybody else is sort of leaving quietly, which I find to be very interesting. So I just don't know what to say, what to do, but I've seen a lot of social media where people have been very, very happy. And I think if you understand the sacrifice that people have made and everything, I think you understand their sentiment. Even the ball kids, believe it or not, have had to be vaccinated. The ball kids have all had to be vaccinated. If they wanted to work, if they wanted to be at the Australian Open, they had to be double vaxxed. You can't watch the Australian Open without being double vaxxed. You can't get in through the gate without showing your vaccination card, your proof of vaccination. Hello, Terry. I've been missing everybody too, but it's been, as I said, it's been really, 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 really tough. So being away, but anyway, so this is the grounds that. This is what he's used section 133C. So this is the Migration Act, the 1958 Migration Act. Minister's personal powers to cancel visa on 116. This is section 113C. This is the grounds of which he has done it. Now, this is why I'm saying that he's going to have trouble. He's going to have trouble appealing. And it's this word, satisfied. The minister is satisfied that the ground for cancelling the visa exists, and the minister is satisfied that it would be in the public interest to do so. How does a judge turn around and say the minister was satisfied or not? How can the judge turn around and say, well, the minister wasn't satisfied, so it was wrong? This is why it's going to be very, very hard. And it's natural justice does not apply it. So the minister doesn't even have to give a reason. He only has to be satisfied. So he made a statement today. So Immigration Minister Alex Hawke has used his ministerial powers to personally cancel Novak Djokovic's visa after the world #1 men's tennis player won a court case earlier this week. Mr. Hawke said he had cancelled the visa, this time on health and good order grounds, on the basis that it was in the public interest to do so. So remember, the minister only has to be satisfied. Now, I don't know how much you follow, but there's been stuff where, hello, Princess Jax, there's been some startling revelations from Novak Djokovic to say that he was actually out and about at an event after having COVID, being diagnosed with COVID, and putting other people at risk, that he filled in the form incorrectly to enter Australia, that he went to Spain when he was COVID positive. He went to Spain, COVID positive. So there's been all these things. So he's made some admissions this week where the minister can say that he's satisfied it's in the public interest. In fact, it's also in Djokovic's interest, because if you think about it, our COVID cases are just skyrocketing. To have an unvaccinated player, where players are actually coming down with COVID. Bernard Tomic, hello, Bo. Bernard Tomic actually played a match, wasn't feeling well, and now has tested positive to COVID. So where tennis players playing tennis in the actual venue are actually coming down with COVID, it's actually very risky for him to be there. So Mr. Hawke said he cancelled the visa on health and good order grounds on the basis it was in the public interest. In making this decision, I carefully considered information provided to me by the Department of Home Affairs, the Australian Border Force, and Mr. Djokovic. So Mr. Djokovic's lawyer actually sent a brief to the immigration minister outlining their stuff. So essentially, they've put forward what they'd probably put in court. So the Morrison government is firmly committed to protecting Australia's borders, particularly in relation to the COVID-19 pandemic. Mr. Djokovic had applied for a medical exemption to enter Australia because he's unvaccinated, but had argued he should be granted the exemption because he had tested positive in mid-December. But when he arrived in Melbourne on January 6th, the 34-year-old was detained by Australian Border Force officials and hours later had his visa cancelled on the grounds he did not meet entry requirements. The tennis star's legal team is expected to appeal against the minister's decision in a bid to allow him to stay and play in the Australian Open. Now, Mr. Hawke had been considering since Monday whether to intervene, and Djokovic had wanted a reprieve when they reversed the decision earlier. So if he doesn't appeal, he will be deported and barred from being granted any future visa in the next 3 years. So it's unclear whether he has to go back to immigration detention in Melbourne. And the Australian Open is set to start on Monday. And he was in yesterday's draw. So he was included in yesterday's Australian Open draw and was set to face fellow Serbian Mimor Kekmanovic in the first round tournament. So since his court win on Monday, questions have been raised about whether the 34-year-old lied on the border entry form, about his travel in the 2 weeks before he arrived in Australia. In a statement on Instagram, he said his team filed the document and mistake was human error. And he provided additional information to the government. So it says more to come. So here's the border. Graham, look, he has a right to appeal, but Poppy Seeds will tell you that, and I've heard lots of legal experts say, it's virtually impossible to have the minister's decision overturned. And it's based on this, because natural justice does not apply. The minister only has to be satisfied. So it says on November 18, Djokovic was granted a temporary activity visa. Temporary activity enables the person to work in Australia on a short-term basis, and so Class 408 covers sporting activities. On November 29, the Health Minister writes to Tennis Australia, saying players wishing to enter Australia quarantine-free must be fully vaccinated and cannot count a previous infection as a reason for exemption. December 16, Djokovic undertakes a PCR and rapid antigen COVID tests, according to a statement that he put out. On December 17, Djokovic participates in the events, having not yet received a positive COVID test result. Now, what happens when you do a PCR test? You have to isolate until you get your result. On December 18, Djokovic takes part in a media interview despite having tested positive to COVID. On December 30, Djokovic receives a letter from Chief Medical Officer of Tennis Australia saying that he'd been granted a medical exemption from COVID vaccination on the grounds he'd previously recovered from COVID. January 1, he receives an automatic online confirmation via the Australian Travel Declaration website that he'd met the requirements for a travel quarantine-free arrival into Australia, where permitted by the jurisdiction of your arrival. Just before midnight, January 5, Djokovic arrives in Melbourne on a flight from Dubai and is detained at the airport. In the early hours of January 6, he's interviewed by Border Force before his visa is cancelled and transferred to detention. Later that day, his lawyers file a challenge. An injunction is granted to allow Djokovic to remain in the country until January 10. This is what I think they're going to do. They're going to apply for an injunction for him to play in the Australian Open. That's the only way he can. That's the only way he'll be able to do it, is to have a court injunction, and then he will have to leave. Because, as I said, it's very, very hard to appeal against the minister's decision. On January 10th, court finds that visa was unreasonably cancelled. Now, the other thing that they could have done is they could have actually appealed, because, as we found out, that he wasn't entirely truthful in his documentation. And so the government could have argued that the judge didn't take the full, they only took one section of it to task and not the full picture. If the judge had examined and investigated the full case, then he would have upheld the cancellation. So the Australian Open draw takes place, and the match between Djokovic and compatriot Mimir Kekmanovic is scheduled for the first round. And on the 14th, Immigration Minister Alex Hawke uses his ministerial powers to cancel Djokovic's visa on health and good order grounds. So that's where we stand now. That's where we are. I think for myself, I think that it took too long to have been done. I think it should have been done. All right. So let's have a look. So here we go. Here we go. So Melbourne-based immigration lawyer Kian Bone says Djokovic's lawyers face an extremely difficult task to get the court orders over the weekend to allow their client to play next week. For Djokovic to get the outcomes he needs to play would be extremely difficult to obtain over the weekend. Mr. Hawke's delay in reaching a decision bordered on punitive. If he left it any later than he has done now, I think from a strategic standpoint, his Hawke's really hamstringing Djokovic's legal team in terms of what sort of options or remedies he could obtain. The lawyers would need to go before a duty judge of the Federal Circuit and Family Court or higher judge of the Federal Court to get two urgent orders. One order would be an injunction preventing his deportation. The second would order Mr. Hawke to grant Djokovic a visa to play. The second order is almost not precedented. Very rarely do courts order a member of the executive government to grant a visa. This is the problem. And apparently, oh, no. So I assume the applications will be for Novak Djokovic to be released on a bridging visa to allow him to play at the Australian Open. He would need to sit over the weekend. There are complex issues. So, yeah, it's not impossible, but it's hard. So, of course, ScoMo has finally spoken out. I note the Minister for Immigration's decision in relation to Mr. Novak Djokovic's visa. I understand that following careful consideration, action has been taken by the Minister to cancel Mr. Djokovic's visa on health and good order grounds on the basis it was in the public interest to do so. The pandemic has been very difficult for every Australian, but we have stuck together and saved lives and livelihoods. I could debate that. Together, we have achieved one of the lowest death rates, strongest economies, and highest vaccination rates in the world. Australians have made many sacrifices during this pandemic, and they rightly expect the result of those sacrifices to be protected. This is what the Minister is doing in taking this action today. Our strong border protection policies have kept Australians safe prior to COVID and now during the pandemic. Due to the expected ongoing legal proceedings, I will not be providing any further comment. So there you go. So he's got some hurdles to jump. As I said, it's to ask to order Mr. Hawke to grant a visa for him to play is not precedented. And they don't ever tell a member of government that they've got to do something. They're going to have to ask. And they're going to have to get an injunction to prevent the deportation, at least until the end of the Australian Open. So that's where we sit. So anyway, what are your thoughts on this? Any thoughts? I mean, as I said, I just am surprised it took so long. But this is the outcome it's the outcome I expected. And don't forget, we're in an election year, and it wouldn't take long to have read the room to know that a lot of people are very angry by it. And don't forget, that was very strategic. The timing of it was very strategic from the government point of view. Again, they may not be able to do anything until Monday morning. And technically, if they can't do anything by Monday morning, they could support him over the weekend. I hope he doesn't get to stay. Well, a lot of people are. The other thing is that people who were going to the tennis have stated they were going to boo him. And so he wasn't going to get a very good reception either. I had sort of suggested that if I was his lawyer, hello, totally clueless, that if I was Djokovic's lawyer, I would tell him to sneak out quietly. Because although Spain has said they're not going to investigate him, but it was deemed that he was out in Spain as well. And he broke isolation rules in his own country, which is also being investigated. And apparently people that break isolation rules in Serbia can have up to 5 years jail. But they're saying that he would more than likely get a community order. So no, that's the thing, Graham. Perhaps if because it's come under natural justice does not apply. He doesn't need to give it. He doesn't need to give a reason under natural justice does not apply. This is what Poppy Seeds has told me. Poppy Seeds has told me that the minister is under no obligation, because natural justice does not apply, to explain his decision. He only has to be satisfied that there are grounds. Now, if natural justice applied, then he could. He may have to, but natural justice doesn't apply here. The way that it's been done has been done, so it is virtually that there's literally impossible. Yeah. The administrative tribunals can... So they can go to the administrative tribunal. Now they can say that No, I don't know where he's sleeping tonight. Now, the administrative tribunal can decide that the ground did not exist. But again, I believe that is only if there is natural justice. Natural justice does not exist in this. See, the rules of natural justice do not apply under So, and they may cancel a visa under subsection C, whether or not. Now, if it was a member of the immigration department, if it was the deputy, if it was a delegate on behalf of the immigration minister, then yes, it can be overturned. But the immigration minister, yeah. But because it's the immigration minister, he only has to be satisfied. It's this word satisfied. If the Minister of Home made the decision, you will not be able to go to aid, but you may have gone to go to Federal Court of Australia from the Victorian. Yeah. So it all comes down to this wording, satisfied. And he has said, he stated in his thing that he considered all the evidence from even Djokovic himself and that he made a decision. So he's saying that based on, oops, I realized I wasn't showing it to you. So he's looked at everything. And again, he didn't have to give a reason. So he's saying that he's satisfied. Well, we know that Djokovic has come out himself and has contradicted even his affidavit that he wrote. So it's there's definitely lots of questions to be answered. And I think that's why they took time, because they wanted to make sure that it was bulletproof. He's been training totally clueless. So he's been training. It's interesting because there's been quite a bit mixed reaction. More and more tennis players are coming out against. We're coming out against him to say that they don't think he should play. So there was all of that. There was all sorts of somebody yelled at me in my face this morning because I said, "Look, I still think you'll get deported." And apparently, how dare I say that? I will admit it is a mess. It's a disgusting mess. And I know Poppy Seeds will probably comment on this, so keep an eye on this, because Poppy Seeds will probably comment on this and give us some more information. So what if they... I was told today by somebody that he's an elite athlete and he doesn't put anything in his body that he doesn't know. And that's why he won't get vaccinated. That's what I was told. So this is not going to go away, I don't think. Unfortunately. I really don't think this is going to go away. Of course they're gonna say he shouldn't play. I mean, Nadal sort of said it'd be great for him if he didn't play. I mean, Nadal's in for a chance, and the world number and the number 2 seed goes to number 1 seed. He was training on John Cain Arena today, and it was really weird because it was like, well, what are you doing here? You know, training on here. So anyway, he well, and that was one of the other tennis players things that they've all had to. Anyone that wanted to play had to get vaccinated. But I was saying, as I said, for me, that I would be, yeah. Of course, his lawyers have to tell him that he has a very slim chance of success because that's what you have to do. You have to be honest with your client. They'll say we can do it, but let's face it, the only people that are going to win are his lawyers. Yes, he possibly would be disqualified from. Yes, that's right. You have to be vaxxed. I think the French Open have said that he can play. So they've sort of broken down the reasons here. So they've said, so the health and safety, so persons had their visa cancelled cannot be granted a visa while offshore for 3 years, except in certain circumstances. So he could apply for a special visa to come and play for this at the Australian Open every year, including compelling circumstances that affect the interests of Australia or compelling circumstances affecting the interests of Australian citizens. It is hard to claim the number 1 if you're not playing. Yeah. Now, 2 more players with COVID travel exemptions have left Australia. They actually left on their own accord. They did not want to get caught into this mess. So they've left the country. So there were 4 others, 3 players and officials. They also got through it. See, my question is, how did everybody get through immigration? So the 3 players and official were able to get through immigration, right? And then the emergence of 2 more players on exemptions heightens the confusion. So there's 6 people that got into the country before Djokovic, and they've all left. So it's definitely confusing, all of this. So yeah, I don't really know. But the timing of it was everything's been planned out. What you got cooking? I don't know. I don't know what I got cooking. Oh, here we go. Look at this. This is just a minute ago. This is the ABC. It says, more from former Immigration Department Deputy Secretary. He says if Djokovic had not posted announcing he had received a medical exemption, the case may be a different story. I personally think a lot of this was driven by the visceral reaction of the Australian public after Mr. Djokovic's Instagram post on the 4th of January. Had that not taken place, I suspect the course of history may have taken a different path. He says, one question that still must be answered is whether the government changed its policy due to Djokovic, given 4 other unvaccinated players entered the country without any problems. They have now left Australia. Well, the visa cancellation will show Australia to be very tough on issues of COVID. And to be fair, Australia has adopted very tough laws in respect to COVID. We know that over the last 2 years. On the other hand, the poor handling of this matter will also be highlighted internationally. As we know, for other people who entered Australia without their visas cancelled, and when they entered through the airport, who entered on the basis of the same exemption that Mr. Djokovic used. But they were not stopped at the airport, and they have subsequently left Australia. But the question that must arise is, was the policy changed on 6th of January targeting Mr. Djokovic? So there you go. Yeah, what to do. That is correct, Physics Down Under, because there is a chain. Well, without a lawyer, as long as the government gets to recoup the money that we've wasted, I don't think he's going to care. So, look, well, the Czechoslovakian girl that got deported, she's actually asking Tennis Australia to pay her costs, and she's actually alleged that when the issue came up for her, Tennis Australia hung her out to dry because she wasn't highly ranked. She said she was saying that if she was number 1 or number 2, or if she was Novak Djokovic, that Tennis Australia would have bent over backwards to assist her. But in fact, her advice, the advice that she was given, was told to leave, where Djokovic was told to fight. Funny, hey? So I think, in my personal opinion, Tennis Australia has a lot to answer for. Craig Tiley's come out and said, well, the government kept giving, different advice, but we know that on the 29th of November, that we've seen the letter that Greg Hunt told Tennis Australia that having COVID was not going to be a valid reason. So, no, the paper trail's not going to be flattering to Tennis Australia. He's going to lose his case and lots of money. Yeah, I think so. But again, if he had not bragged, I think that's a really good point. If he had not bragged that he was coming to Australia, to the Australian Open, and that he'd received an exemption, we wouldn't have known. And if he hadn't have said anything, we wouldn't have known. But the fact that he bragged about it, that he was coming to Australia unvaccinated and with an exemption, really started to get up the backs of people. And particularly when we have mandates where people are having to give up work because they won't get vaccinated. People are losing their jobs. They're walking away because there are mandated, you have to be vaccinated to work in certain jobs now, certain jobs. So people are quitting their jobs because they won't get vaccinated. And then you've got Djokovic coming in and saying, well, I found a way around it. So that's really what I'm interested in at the moment. Well, and that's also correct too. People are giving up work because they can't get tests even if they are vaccinated. Apparently he did give the so essentially it was overturned on a technical error, a technical thing, really, because of shift change, and they didn't give him enough time to seek legal advice or something. It was a technical, but it's just very, very interesting. Well, Yeah, because, and I believe there was a shift change and that something, there was a miscommunication in handover, which, does happen. But see, here's the thing. Here's my point. The government didn't actually contest it. They actually gave up. Right? They didn't contest it. They rolled over, which then said to me, they've got something bigger up their sleeve. They're going to make sure that it's bulletproof. But then, as I said, and that is correct. Well, see, yes, he got off on a technicality, but the decision that the delegate made actually was a correct decision. And that's the point. It was a correct decision because anyway, it's going to be great. Oh, it's a shame I'm not working tomorrow. I'm not going to be there to get all the reaction, but as I said, I got yelled at today because I was saying that I believe that I said I have to be vaxxed for work. I said that I thought he would get deported, and I outlined the reasons, and I cited the Migration Act. And I got yelled at by somebody for being an anti-Djokovic fan. I said, no. Well, yeah, the rules are always changing. I mean, I can't even keep up with the rule changes. So, yeah, I quoted this. And this person's over here. Actually, the person that yelled at me is actually on a work visa themselves, and I was not. Yeah. Well, that's true, and that is true. That it was a procedure. It was a procedure error, but as I said, as it's turned out, and Djokovic admitted to being out in public after being COVID positive. So, in that basis alone, that is reckless behaviour. So, yeah. All very interesting, isn't it? Look, there's been some challenges to vaccine mandates in the Supreme Court or in Victoria and New South Wales, and they were upheld. So, yeah, the courts have upheld them here. I don't think the diplomatic passport will do much. But who knows? Who knows? Well, actually, yeah, wonder if yeah, I wonder. Very interesting. Well, thank you. Yeah, well, I mean, I've been talking to Poppy Seeds over the last few days, and I've been asking her lots of questions about different scenarios. So that's how I know. That's how I know. So, because, yeah, I wanted to make sure that the information that I give you is correct. So, and to be perfect, as I said, as I've reiterated a few times, that with COVID cases the way they are in Australia, it's You know, he could get it again. Plus, we don't know whether what strain he had as well. So, yeah. So that's really what's happening at the moment. So that's where we are. It's pretty. I'm just waiting to see whether we've got any action as to what's happening. Yeah, 4% of Queensland has it. Yeah, it's pretty. And also remember that there's an election coming up, and this is probably also very much a political decision, knowing how many people were against him being here. The government now can stand up and say we're tough, you know, we can do this, and you know, we keep our word when we say this, we mean it, and you know, it's going to be it's a little bit politicized, which I don't like. But the timing of it is all been it's all been deliberate. It's all been deliberate. Yeah, I heard about that. Let's have a look at this. And I was reading that they avoided a fine, which I don't agree with. Oh, that's okay. It's fine. It's fine, Bo. It's fine. Don't worry about it. I appreciate everyone's support in whatever you do. So this is Hillsong Church avoids fine, apologizes for youth camp festival. So this is bizarre. Don't get me started on Hillsong. So here we go. Hillsong Church has issued an apology after allowing hundreds of people to sing and dance at a youth camp. After New South Wales Premier Dominic Perrottet said he was completely shocked by a video from the event. Health authorities yesterday demanded singing and dancing immediately stop at the event, as New South Wales Police intervened to ensure future compliance with COVID-19 restrictions. The video shows hundreds of participants maskless singing and dancing inside a large tent with performers on stage. We regret giving any perception that we were not playing our part to keep New South Wales safe, and we sincerely apologise to the community at large, Hillsong said in a statement. But it maintained the youth camp was not a music festival. Yeah, right. Yeah, right. These are high school aged events that include sporting activities and games, the statement said. They are alcohol-free events held outdoors, and the number of students attending at each camp is just over 200. New South Wales Police confirmed Hillsong will not be fined over the event. Following discussions with organisers and after consultation with New South Wales Health, no infringement will be issued. Earlier, Mr. Perrottet said he understood the anger people had felt across the state. I was shocked last night to see that footage. Mr. Perrottet said it was his expectation a fine would be issued. I'll take advice in relation to legal teams at New South Wales Health, and if there are in breach, is what information I've received from the Health Minister is then a fine should be issued. The maximum penalty for a corporation breaching public health orders is $55,000. Recent changes to public health orders banning singing and dancing at music festivals, hospitality venues, nightclubs, entertainment facilities, and major recreation facilities. Well, it comes under that. In fact, it comes under, while the order does not apply to religious services, New South Wales Health has deemed the event a major recreation facility. Hey, that's what I said. Oh, it's going to be a super spreader event, and therefore subject to the ban on singing and dancing. Charleston MP Jodie Harrison said she was very disturbed by the footage and urged Hillsong to comply with laws. As a chorus of music industry figures have taken to social media to voice outrage at the camp, while all other music festivals are heading down the toilet, same as last year, Hillsong are no masks, singing and dancing, and we've all been told not to do country singer Troy Castiglione posted, "Our industry is hurting on all levels." Mr. Perrottet said he understood the music industry would be outraged. "I appreciate the sacrifice those music festival organisers have made." Yeah, I think they should have been fined myself. But that's just my update. That's just my opinion. If this isn't a music festival, I'm a monkey's uncle. We have to wear masks at our church. The only person that's allowed to have their mask off is the person leading the service or speaking. And you have to be 4 meters. You have to have 4 meters from where the congregation starts. Yeah, so we wear masks. I could have said, yeah, I'm okay with that if they were wearing masks, and they're not even social distancing. But watch, there'll be COVID cases coming out of there. Mark my words. It's a cat. So anyway, I just find it to be, and again, that is no different to the Djokovic situation in my view. You know, just because the Prime Minister attends the Hillsong Church doesn't mean that they're above the law. So, and then, of course, we've got Prince Andrew, who's now been stripped of his Royal Highness title. He's been stripped of all his military stuff with the Queen, and she's making him deal with his court case as a private citizen. Yes, the government's commandeering all the rats, and I'm not talking about rodents. Rapid antigen testing or lateral flow. I think some places call them lateral flow tests. We call them rats. Oh, essentially, as far as I'm concerned, the government's just given the ALP lots of ammunition for the election. Didn't I see Albo with a t-shirt about holding a hose? Just get me a hose to hold or something. I'm sure I saw. Already had the blood-sucking medicine. Oh, yeah, very interesting. Oh, he is, isn't he? And I don't think being a private citizen will concern him either. Oh, yeah. Hello, Laura. How are you? And apparently there's all of this drama that's going on that I'm missing, which I'm very happy I'm missing. I can't keep up with it. I can't. I'm just really shocked by what's going on. So we just stay in our lane. We'll just focus on. We'll just. Oh, sorry. I just saw this. John Huston, who was a federal opposition leader at one point in time, says Djokovic wants special treatment. Maybe a miracle. Should have joined Hillsong. Supreme Leader Kim Jong-un declined sudden invitation to fill a spot in the Australian tennis tournament. If he did join the Hillsong, he'd be singing and dancing tonight instead of huddling with lawyers. Oh, dear me. And the Assange type tournament exit will be. What is Laura? What is Johnson doing? I having a party? He was having a party. So, oh really? It's going to be a mistrial, is it? Wow. Downing Street is posh nightclub. I never knew. Wow. Is it a posh nightclub? Well, maybe next time he needs to invite us all, hey? It's what pop back. I drew a line on there. Wow. So there's lots of stuff happening at the moment. That's just unbelievable. So I haven't seen anything to say what, if there's any update. The thing is, I would say his lawyers would have realised what was happening, and they would have had something up there, like they would have already had planned it. If you remember rightly, the judge said that he wanted to know about it. I would say that they've known hours ago. And it's interesting because Djokovic was supposed to be on court this afternoon, but he actually was on court this morning. And so I think he sort of knew that. I think he knew it was coming. So again, just my opinion. I have no proof. It's just what I think. So yeah, so I'm not back now at the Australian Open until the 17th, and then I'm working for 2 weeks solid. I've been doing about 26,000 steps a day over the last few days, so it's been pretty full on. And as if you've read my community tab, my grandma passed away on Wednesday, 92. And yeah. She lived a good life. And she went in her sleep. And for me, best way to go, hey? Only way to go is in your sleep. So yeah, doing all right. So it says, Renee Stubbs says many of the other players will be pleased decision has been reached. It's actually been the talk. It's actually been the talk of the tennis. And I was speaking to somebody who works in the players' gym and said that's all they've been talking about is whether about Djokovic, and they're mixed as whether they should be stay or go. But she said, yeah, and this is what they were hoping for. They just wanted to get on with start talking about tennis rather than Djokovic. So as far as they're concerned, they're probably happy it's over. Whether it was to let him stay or deport him, I think they're very happy this is over and we can move to the tournament on Monday. So that's been the whole talking point the whole week at the tennis. And this week has been qualifiers, so people have been playing to get a spot into the tournament. So yeah, she and the thing. Getting back to Grandma, she'd prepaid her funeral and she'd planned her funeral. So essentially, she's laid out what she wants. So in some aspects, everything's been laid. It's easy because she's going to get what she wanted, because she's going to get all the songs that she wanted and everything in the service, because she's put it together. So we just wanted her to go quick. We wanted her to go quickly and peacefully in the end, and that's what happened. So we're thinking the Wednesday. We think Wednesday's going to be the funeral. I think Wednesday. So yeah. Anyway, I've been on here long enough. I'm actually really tired. I'm going to head off and bid farewell. But I wanted to come on and tell you that finally we got a decision. It's not over yet. I'm suspecting that there'll be some late night filings going on. There'll be some urgent court hearings going on over the weekend. I'll definitely keep you updated. At this stage, I'm not working over the weekend. Well, he's okay. He's a little bit sad. Because great grandma loved Harrison, just like everybody loves Harrison. Everybody loved Harrison, and yeah, it's he's sad, but he also knows that she was also not very well, and it was she needs to be in heaven, so he knows that as well. So yeah, he's doing all right, and I asked him whether he was going to go. I said, Are you going to go to the funeral? And he goes, yep. So he wants to go to the funeral. So Yeah, if you can hit like and subscribe on your way out, that would be really, really cool. Even if you subscribe. Yeah. So we'll see what happens, hey? All right, see you, everybody. Thank you for joining me. And as I said, I'll keep an eye out. And I know Poppy Seeds will probably respond to this with some more information about how it's all going to work. As I said, I've been speaking to her throughout the week out of interest how this was going to all work and happen. So, as I said, it is virtually impossible usually to overturn a minister's decision. It is very rare for a court to tell a minister that they have to change their decision. Very rare. The best he can do is get a bridging visa or some type of temporary visa to allow him to play in the Open, and then he would be gone. However, I don't know whether the minister could cancel that visa as well. I mean, I don't know how that stands because the minister outranks the. That's something Poppy Seeds might be able to tell us, whether if he was issued with a bridging visa, whether that one could be cancelled. It'd be very petty, but anyway. So I'll catch you all again soon. So thank you for watching, and bye for now. You have a good night, good day, good night, whatever time it is where you are.